Welcome, and thank you so much for being at this presentation. I appreciate your rapt attention, and I appreciate you allowing me to prototype what I hope to present later this summer. I want to talk about the myth of neutral technology. Kind of a cool title, especially if you think of it as an acronym. It's TMNT. Now, you may not know what TMNT is, but if you grew up in the United States, it's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Now, what do Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles have to do with technology? Well, oh, by the way, you got to do the theme song. Oh, come on. I just wanted the audio. Now it's going to go to, okay, let's see if this works. Come on, come on. All right, now you know. I did not grow up with this, but a couple of my kids did, so they thought that was really cool. But we're really not going to talk about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. We're going to talk about the myth of neutral technology. One of my mentors here at Concordia University was Dr. John Saleska. Dr. John Saleska passed away last fall. But I model some of my presentations after him because he always began, he'd like to begin with a prayer, but not with a normal type of prayer, but with the stanzas of a hymn. So I want to share with you a hymn from, this is St. Bernard of Clairvaux, about 500 or 600 A.D. Wow, that's a long time. He's almost as old as I am. O Jesus, King most wonderful, thou conqueror renowned, O source of peace ineffable, in whom all joys are found. When once you visit darkened hearts, then truth begins to shine, then earthly vanity departs, then kindles love divine. For those of you sitting in class, that may remind you a little bit about what Dietrich Bonhoeffer said about ethics, and I'll remind you of that in a little bit too. Let's start though with a Chuck Norris fact. Now, if you're not familiar with Chuck Norris is he's sort of an American icon. Let's put it this way. Many people wear a Superman cape, like my colleague Dr. Littman. But Superman wears Chuck Norris pajamas. So Chuck Norris is the man. Now you may know this. On Chuck Norris's computer, there is no control key. Chuck Norris is always in control. See, that was a joke. Chuck Norris is always in control. You know, that's an interesting comment. Are we in control of technology? As computer scientists and information technologists, we like to think that we're in control of technology. And oftentimes, just as regular users, we like to think that we're in control of technology. But do we control it, or does it control us? Does technology manipulate us? Rather than just a benign neutral tool, is technology designed to manipulate us? Well, let me give you my answer, and then let's see if I can prove it. My answer is yes. Does technology manipulate people? Yes. I don't think anybody denies that. But even more deeper, was technology designed to manipulate people? Consider the following. Now, for those of us here in CSC 510, we've seen some of these articles already. Former Facebook vice president says, hey, Facebook is social media, right? For more than 2 billion active users every day, Facebook is social media. Social media is destroying society with dopamine-driven feedback loops. Let me read a little bit more of this quote. He's been making waves over the last year speaking out about Facebook, and he was a former developer, the former vice president there. He spoke out about his tremendous guilt, and those are his words, overgrowing the social network, which he feels has eroded the core foundations of how people behave by and between each other. In his article, he says, in the beginning of Facebook, we didn't give too much thought to what might happen. What are the long-term negative consequences of social media like Facebook? But he reiterates, and this is a quote, I think in the back, deep, deep recesses of our minds, we kind of knew something bad could happen. Facebook's first president on Facebook. Again, Facebook executive, founder, developer on Facebook. Facebook founders purposefully created something addictive, said Sean Parker. God only knows what it's doing to our children's brains. With each like and comment, Facebook is exploiting human psychology on purpose to keep users hooked on social validation feedback loop. Like, anybody like me? Like, anybody like me? Parker said, adding that it is exactly the kind of thing that a hacker like myself would come up with. Interesting. Now, in this class, we investigated this article in depth. This article was written before all the current Facebook things began about a year ago. And we've already investigated this idea that, hey, Facebook can and has manipulated people. You remember in the article it said, look, we used what, 700,000 different Facebook users? And for some, we seeded what were considered positive, happy things in their news feed. And we noticed that they responded by, in general, feeding other happy, positive things. The other group were given sad, unhappy. What's the opposite of happy? Sad. They were given downers, and they did respond in kind. They pushed on unhappy, sad types of. So, social contagion, when technologies manipulate our emotions. So, question: is technology neutral, or does it reflect an image of its creators? Now, if you believe that technology is neutral, I don't blame you. This is what I used to believe. I used to think, technology is no different than any other tool. It's just like a hammer. I can use a hammer for a good purpose. I could use a hammer for a bad purpose. Technology is really neutral. Hold that thought. Yeah, it can, absolutely. And I'll give you some examples of that. But I guess the question we want to investigate is there something about the inherent design of technology that would make it non-neutral? And I'm going to say yes. And here's why. Because technology should reflect, I'm going to use the word image again, an image of the people who created it. Technology will possess in terms of this class, the ethics, the morals, and the values of the people who created it, right? Good? Bad? You bet. Do you know what this is? Ever been there? It's the bean. The artist that developed it didn't call it the bean, but everybody, this is in Millennial Park in Chicago. Everybody calls it the bean. And of course, you stand in front of it and get a reflected image and all those kinds of things. So there's my wife and I in front of that. I've used this term image a couple times. Now, while how I'm using it is not that, the technology looks like us, but by image I mean attributes, characteristics, values, ethics, morals. Indeed, the technology will reflect us. Technology really isn't neutral. This was a headline recently. Technology is not neutral. How online companies manipulate billions of minds every day. Do you think people are influenced by Facebook and Twitter? And yeah, absolutely they are. Now, this is, of course, a human nature issue. And for us investigating ethics, we've investigated issues related to human nature a lot. And there's something interesting we know about human nature. People are not neutral. People are both good and bad. From a Christian worldview perspective, as I've discussed with you before, human beings are simultaneously saint and sinner. Christians, although we have been redeemed, still have that so-called old fallen nature. So even somebody who is a Christian, says he is a Christian, can do bad, horrible things. And this is true of everybody. People can do great good, beautiful things, and people can do great evil, ugly things, the same person. It's rather unusual that we are truly value neutral. Whether or not technology is neutral, and I'll try to prove to you that I don't believe it is, human beings are not. So, computer ethics. Would it be important for computer scientists and information technologists to understand some things about computer ethics? Thank you for shaking your heads this way, since you're in a class entitled Vocation in Ethical Computing. Thank you. Yeah, of course. That is extremely important. We have defined ethics as a branch of philosophy that tries to understand how we ought to live, how we ought to do things. So, ethics is a branch of philosophy trying to understand how we ought to do things. This is Professor Norbert Wiener. Professor Norbert Wiener was oftentimes people ask me, what do these people do for a living? They didn't do anything. They were college professors. They didn't do anything. So Professor Norbert Wiener is oftentimes credited with the first thoughts about computer ethics. Now, he worked this in his lab here. This is during World War II. And he recalled that the first true computer was constructed during World War II, completed in 1946. So this is interesting. Before we really had computers, Dr. Wiener predicted that after the war, World War II, 60 plus years, whoa, more than that, right? Yeah, 80 years ago, he predicted that after the war, the world would undergo a second industrial revolution, what he called an automatic age. He was talking about computers with, and these are his words, enormous potential for good and for evil that would generate a staggering number of new ethical challenges and opportunities. So we have investigated the fact that routine ethics, just the things that would be applied to other areas of life, really haven't been good enough for this new automatic age, information technology, and computerization. Dietrich Bonhoeffer. I shocked many of you at the beginning of this class by saying this quote from Dietrich Bonhoeffer. The knowledge of good and evil appears to be the goal of all ethics. Christian ethics has as its first task to overthrow this idea. Mankind in its origin knows only one, God. So to put it another way, ethics is not trying to determine right and wrong, good and evil. Ethics is not trying to determine what is right and what is wrong. What Dr. Bonhoeffer is saying is, as soon as we try to determine what's right and wrong, then we are setting ourselves up as the authority for what is right and wrong. So in other words, in his words, to know good and evil is to want to determine good and evil. To know good and evil is to know something other than just the good. And that's what humans knew originally in the garden. In other words, apparently we can make a choice of what's right and wrong, good or bad. Bonhoeffer says, overthrow that idea. Ethics should focus on only one, and that's the good. And by the good, Bonhoeffer means God, God's laws. Now, why is ethics a critical aspect of technology? Why do we care about ethics in computers? How can anybody make that value statement that technology is not neutral? There are two fundamental reasons why it's important to consider ethics and technology. Number one, technology amplifies. It amplifies human ideas, human values, human morals, human actions. We've seen some of those examples throughout this class. I need a better example. 100 years ago, if you wanted to gossip in 1918, you talked over the back fence. One or two other people heard it. Today, you tweet it out, 2 billion people hear it. So, why is ethics a critical aspect of technology? Why can't we separate technology and ethics? Why do we always have to consider ethics with technology? Number one, tech amplifies. And the second reason, technology is informational in nature. Information technologists, this is that term, logically malleable. Computers are logically malleable. We can get them to do almost anything that we can imagine. Why? Because they deal with information. And the imagination idea is information. Computers are informational tools. Our imagination is wide-ranging. Computers can do almost anything that we can imagine. Maybe we should say that computers are only limited by our imagination. So, tech amplifies, and number two, tech is informational. It is that logically malleable idea. Let's get at the heart of it. Why can technology be used for good or evil? These are the words of Jesus as recorded in Luke chapter 6. No good tree bears bad fruit, nor does a bad tree bear good fruit. Each tree is recognized by its own fruit. People do not pick figs from thorn bushes or grapes from briars. A good person brings good things out of the good stored up in his heart, and an evil person brings evil things out of the evil stored up in his heart. For the mouth speaks what the heart is full of. Image. If you're a good tree, you bring forth good fruit. If you have good things stored up in your heart, that will be expressed in what you do. And for computer scientists and information technologists, that expression are these good tools that were designed in a vocational way. And by vocation, again, we mean, how do I love and serve my neighbor? Can computers be good for, or be used for anything bad? You may not be old enough to know what Doom is about as a computer game. There are, of course, many different things. If Grand Theft Auto is one of your favorite games, I'm sorry. But the purpose of games like Grand Theft Auto is not to teach people good interpersonal skills. It's to lie, steal, cheat, kill, etc. True? There's a recent article kind of surprised to see it in the venue that it was, because very much pro-gamer, etc. But the article was entitled, 5 Video Games That Pose and Reward Awful Moral Choices. So in other words, you get ahead in these games not by doing things that are ethically good, morally right, but by ethically bad choices.
We do it because, like, we're told in society you can't do it in reality. But it's all right to do it in the video game.
That's a great question. We're saying it's not okay to do this in reality, so it's okay to do it in a video game. And I wonder, does doing it in the video game, though?
Do you think like the NR, the National Rifle Association,
Mhm.
vote these things? So like,
Oh.
isn't like people
Okay.
angry at that?
Yeah. That's a great question. I don't know the answer to that specifically. But I do wonder how much time you spend with that. Does that then influence you? It's one thing to say, okay, I couldn't really steal a car in real life, but it's okay to do it in the game. But why do we want to be involved with an activity that is not okay to do in real life? I guess we'd have to consider that.
Something that we wanted to.
Oh,
we know it's wrong, but
exactly.
It's acceptable here because
Sure,
we don't get in
sure.
trouble with the law.
You know, yeah, that's a great point. I'm gonna circle to that in just a bit, and you're absolutely right. Yeah, in other words, well, you're right. Wait a minute, did I read this to you? All right, let's not read all of them. Dishonored, it's a video game, rewards you for kidnapping women and giving them to a stalker. Silent Hill 3 condemns you. You lose points, you lose lives if you forgive somebody else. Now, we know there are good uses for technology. We absolutely know that. Right? Some of my favorite examples are technology that's used to help people with disabilities. Honda, the same people who make motor cars, has been working in development along with a number of other companies, but this is an exoskeleton, something that you'd strap on your hips. And so someone who cannot move their legs, with this device, it will allow them to walk. Amazing. Or devices like this that will allow people with severe handicaps to be able to communicate or to be able to get around. These are great examples of good technology being able to use to love and serve our neighbor. So technology can be used for good, but there's an underlying problem. Okay, Jonathan, back to your point here. This was a recent article. Although I showed it to you, we didn't delve into it here in this class. But the author of this article claims social media, and we can extend this to other tech too, is designed around sin. In other words, just what the Facebook founder says, it preys on our own inward sinful nature. Would you allow me to just bring up this article, and we won't do the turtles again, and just talk about a tiny bit of this? Okay. Let me mag this, so in case you'd like to see it out there, you can actually do that. Uh-oh. There we go. Boom. Religion may offer an important explanation as to why this social media platform is so problematic, both for society and for individual well-being. Human depravity, original sin, are perennial themes within the discipline of Christian theology. Augustine and Martin Luther are known for describing the human condition as incurvatus in se, Latin, curved inward on one's self. By nature, we want to do what we want to do, curved in on ourselves, sin. Rather than living a life that is aligned toward God and others, human sinfulness directs our life inward toward self-justification, self-gratification, self-aggrandizement. The notion that sin has warped, twisted, maimed, and ruined human goodness is ubiquitous in theology as Facebook is in modern life. It's very interesting. Talks about user experience. You're going to be involved with this. Quotes Don Norman, who is a leading figure in that. And although not necessarily endorsing this, talks about there's a great danger. We've discussed this before. User-centered design. Make it worthwhile, easy for the user. That could be taken to a logical extreme that says, prey on the user's sinful, depraved condition. We know people secretly want to go, steal the college professor's Mercedes and stuff like that. So, of course, you couldn't do it to me in real life, right? You wouldn't do that, right? Thank you. But I do it here at the game. Yeah, I feel good. Okay. And again, back to this like button. Interesting things to think about. Oh, let's do this instead. So this author claims that social media, and it's very easy to extend to a number of other technology platforms, was actually designed purposely to prey on people's inward thoughts that we know are depraved. Just so you know that this is not isolated instance. Okay? This is a quote about STEM. Do you know what STEM is? Science, technology, engineering, and math. STEM. An education obsessed with science, technology, engineering, and math to the exclusion or neglect of the humanities stems, no pun intended, the growth and development of the human person. So just focusing on technology without understanding human aspects stunts an individual, on the one hand, and unleashes technology without ethical constraints on the other. Only a fool would advocate such an education. Now, who might be advocating that? Sorry, I got to get rid of my... Here's a quote from Albert Einstein, a technologist you may have heard of. It's not enough that you should understand about applied science in order that your work may increase man's blessing. Applied science, that's just us, technology. Listen to this again. It is not enough that you should understand about applied science in order that your work may increase man's blessings. What's the purpose? That sounds like vocation to me. To love and serve our neighbor, our technology should increase man's blessings. Concern for man himself and his fate must always form the chief interest of all technical endeavors. It is not enough to teach a man a specialty, Einstein wrote. Through it, he may become a kind of useful machine, but not a harmoniously developed personality. It was essential, Einstein said, that the student acquire an understanding of and a lively feeling for values. Specifically, he must acquire a vivid sense of the beautiful and morally good. In the absence of such a well-balanced education, a student, possessing nothing more than his limited specialized knowledge in, for example, information technology, more closely resembles a well-trained dog than a harmoniously developed person. So what was Einstein advocating? Einstein said, we need technology with a soul. That's the tagline of Concordia's IT program, the technology program with a soul. From a Lutheran Christian perspective, technology that's created with knowledge of the good and a desire to love and serve our neighbor. So with those good intentions flowing out of us into our tool then reflects that image. For those of you in this class, you may recall in a previous class when we discussed the origin of information technology, one of the people I trace the origins of information technology to is Wilhelm Schickard, a Lutheran professor and pastor at the University of Tübingen in Germany in the early 17th century. Schickard, as far as we know, was one of the first individuals to create a mechanical calculator. Far from a computer, but yet thinking about the grand ideas of computer science. According to Schickard, it was his worldview, his Lutheran Christian worldview, that influenced him to do this. The moral of the story is this: Schickard was concerned for his neighbor. His neighbor was the Lutheran astronomer his neighbor was the Lutheran astronomer. Did I give you the name? Lutheran astronomer Kepler. Kepler's problem was computing planetary orbits. Schickard wanted to help Kepler in these computations. So he created, as far as we know, the world's first mechanical calculator. Not because of a selfish desire, not because he wanted to influence people, not because he wanted to earn a lot of money, not because he wanted to win the Nobel Prize, but because he wanted to love and serve his neighbor. Tech reflects our image. Now, that brings us to artificial intelligence. Today, many people view artificial intelligence as a scary thing. For example, until his death earlier this year, this is Dr. Stephen Hawking. Many people looked at Dr. Hawking as one of the outstanding scientists of our day. And this is what Dr. Hawking said. Dr. Hawking was terrified of artificial intelligence. The development of AI could spell the end of the human race. Earlier this year, beginning of 2018, there was a report authored by a number of different computer scientists. And the report was entitled "The Malicious Use of Artificial Intelligence: Forecasting, Prevention, and Mitigation." The February 2018 report, authored by over 24 experts on the implications of emerging technologies, is sounding the alarm bells on the ways artificial intelligence could enable new forms of cybercrime, physical attacks, political disruption. The list goes on over the next 5 to 10 years. Now, we've seen that also. The one thing to keep in mind when we investigate artificial intelligence and ultimately connect this back to the ethics of technology is artificial intelligence. There are really several different fields of AI. One is known as weak AI. Weak AI currently exists today. This is nothing in the future. I bet you've interacted with weak AI. Do you have a personal digital assistant? Did you say something to your phone, and I don't mean in a conversation? Did you talk to Siri or Google or Alexa or Cortana? Or who am I missing? Certainly somebody. Did you do that today? Then you're interacting with weak AI. Absolutely. This exists today. Weak AI is great, isn't it? I mean, it's helpful. I mean, I just don't understand. I don't understand people who text like this. I just speak it. Right? No, it's true. My digital assistant doesn't get it always right, but I go in and correct those things if I feel like it. But man, is that good stuff. The goal of weak AI is to simulate intelligent behavior. Does anybody believe that Alexa or Siri or Hey Google or Cortana and whichever one else I miss, anybody believe those are like really intelligent things? No. Here's another example. Medical diagnostics. This on the tablet is a little more toy than real tool. but a number of physicians use high-powered expert systems to help them diagnose illnesses. Another example that we're probably familiar with of weak AI, autonomous vehicles, self-driving cars. Now, you know me, I like to drive, so I don't want one, but if you do, that's fine, okay? As long as you like that, that's good. This is great, right? In each of these cases, we are simulating. Nobody believes the car is truly intelligent, but weak AI is allowing it to do things that a driver would normally do. Excellent. Yet, we have to recognize that there are unintended consequences. We've seen some of those in this class, like with the Therac 25, the medical diagnostic and treatment machine. There are unintended consequences. Let me give you an easy-to-understand example. Now, you're going to have to get in your time machine and go way back. Go back to the beginning of email. Whoa! How long ago is that, mister? Is that like 1,000,000 years? Not quite, but it's a long time ago. When email first burst on the scene, and a few people, what a great invention. I don't have to spend, I don't even know how much a postage stamp is. How much is a postage stamp? Yeah, we don't, it's more than 50 cents, right? If I'm going to send you a letter, takes time to, email, instantaneous, right? I can duplicate it. I've got a record of it. It's cheaper. Cool. Oh, and then what happened? Email, great. Then what happened? Yes. Phishing attacks, spam. Hey, how about a watch? And, everything else. So now today, we have to have several different email filters. The email filter here at Concordia filters out about 99% of the spam that comes in, and I still get maybe half a dozen a day. Imagine. And then phishing attacks and malware being spread, and yeah, great idea with an unintended consequence. Phew. Now, there's another aspect of artificial intelligence. That's strong AI. Strong AI, the objective of which is to create thinking machines via human equivalence. The objective is to create thinking machines via human equivalence. Always break the objective in two parts, because I believe that there are different answers to each of the separate questions. One question is, can there be intelligent machines? Is this even possible? This, by the way, when was this? 3 years ago? 4 years ago? This is the TV game show Jeopardy! And what happened is that Jeopardy! Has been on as a television game show for a little bit more than 30 years. So they brought back the two best Jeopardy! Players of all time. Jeopardy! Is a trivia game. You need to know answers to many different, what we call trivia questions. They brought back the person who had won the most games. They brought back the person who won the most money. And they pitted the two of them against IBM's Watson, an intelligent machine. A machine that is meant to simulate the intelligent activities of a human being. Guess what happened? Wiped them out, right? The machine won handily. Now, for reasons that we can discuss afterwards, or I talk about in other classes, I'm going to tell you that I believe that intelligent machines are entirely possible. I believe it is possible for a machine to exhibit even human-level intelligence. Now, hold on. Many people make a leap into the second aspect of strong AI, but you can't do that. Can machines be intelligent? I'm going to claim they can. For example, if we did a survey today, and I do this all the time, More than 50% of the public believes that right now computers are intelligent. We know that they're not truly, but they do appear intelligent, don't they? Because of information theory. Computers appear intelligent. Maybe there's a little difference between appearing intelligent and actually being intelligent. Regardless, I believe that since technology does reflect an image of its human creators, and because human beings are intelligent, is it possible that the technology reflects a level of the intelligence of its creators, us? I think that makes perfect sense. Now, as my bridge into the other aspect of strong AI, I just want to point out, this is Dr. Fred Brooks. Dr. Fred Brooks is an eminent computer scientist, and he's made this comment. He says, which is better, AI or IA? Well, AI is artificial intelligence. A is intelligence amplifying. I like that term. I still call it weak AI. This is what Dr. Brooks says. For example, we know today that a computer can beat the world's best chess player. Computer can beat the chess player. What's the point? Why did we do that? He said, better, why don't we equip the human being with an intelligence amplifying system? Something that will help the human being do their job better. Dr. Brooks said, now if we pit the computer against the human with this IA app, guess who's going to win? Oh, the human being, every time. So intelligence amplifying is a much better idea. Why? Because that's aligned with the purpose of technology. Technology is a tool to allow people to solve problems. Dr. Brooks believes that technology is what he calls the gift of sub-creation. The idea of sub-creation he got from Tolkien. Maybe you've heard the name Tolkien. He made all those movies, The Lord of the Rings. Oh, no, wait, he wrote the books, and then somebody else made the movies, Lord of the Rings. But Tolkien was a Christian, and Tolkien believed that as God created human beings, and since we are created in his image, one of those attributes is what Tolkien called sub-creation. We can also create. And for Tolkien, that was fantasy worlds. For Dr. Brooks and us as IT professionals, that sub-creation is technological tools that will help our users solve problems. This is what Dr. Brooks says. A little reflection shows us that the power to make things in imitation of our Maker is a gift for our sake, not his. As he scornfully reminded the people of Israel, he doesn't need our creative powers. So we must conclude the ability and the call, does that sound like vocation to you? To create are given to us to enrich our lives and to enable us to enrich other lives. It's time to recognize the original goals of AI were not merely extremely difficult, they were goals that, although glamorous and motivating, sent the discipline off in a wrong direction. If indeed our objective is to build computer systems that solve very challenging problems, my thesis is that IA is greater than AI. That is, intelligence amplifying systems can, at any given level of available technology, beat AI systems. That is, a machine and a mind can beat a mind imitating machine working by itself. So, let's bring this full circle. Question: is AI good or bad? But what comes out of the mouth proceeds from the heart, and this defiles a person. For out of the heart come evil thoughts, murder, adultery, sexual immorality, theft, false witness, slander. These are what defile a person. Again, image, reflection of our moral and ethical values. I can't just leave it there, though, because there's another aspect of strong AI, and that's this human equivalence idea. The so-called will you live on in a mind of a computer thesis, or what today we usually call transhumanism. Will computers be human equivalent? My answer is no. Transhumanism? No. Why not? The goal here, the goal of this human equivalence aspect, transhumanism, as stated by strong AI researchers, is eternal life. 31 years ago, 1987, was the earliest popular level account of strong AI research I could uncover. Let me read you just a couple snippets from this article. If you can survive beyond the next 50 years or so, you may not have to die at all, at least not entirely. Quotes Hans Moravec. In an astonishingly short amount of time, scientists will be able to transfer the contents of a person's mind into a powerful computer, and in the process make him, or at least his living essence, virtually immortal, Moravec claims. Today, the popular term for this is transhumanism. Transhumanism is a movement that advocates for the transformation, they usually use the term evolution of humanity through technology. And most transhumanists say, we're going to download you into a machine. We're going to capture the essence, whatever makes you you, your mind, put that into a powerful computer system, and in the process make you immortal. So, let's put this together in the context of this class. Who decides right and wrong? Who determines ethics? Why do some people create tech that is purposely addicting and other people create tech that loves and serves their neighbor? Ethics says that we cannot be the judge and determiner. Ethics says we need an outside authority. And what I've advocated in this class is God is the ultimate authority. Obedient to Christ's command, a Christian IT professional then seeks to love and serve her neighbor by creating tools which reflect love, joy, peace, patience, beauty, truthfulness, goodness. Is that easy to do? Absolutely not. That's hard to do. That is hard to do. That's why we can't look inward. Because I don't know about you, but I'm always conflicted. You know, I know the right thing to do, but I don't always do it. The standard cannot be us. The standard has to be something objective, absolute, outside. Technology is designed to be addicting. This is an article called How Technology is Designed to Bring Out the Worst in Us. Technology feels disempowering because we haven't built it around an honest view of human nature. Yes, we need to realize that human beings are sinful. Fred Brooks ends one of his major articles in this way, and I'd like to share the same thing to you. He says, when you think about creating tools and using technology tools, think about Paul's words to the church in Philippi, Philippians 4:8. Finally, brothers, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable, if there is any excellence, if anything is worthy of praise, think of these things. So that's our focus. This, I believe, is a critical idea to understand ethics and technology, the whole idea of vocation. We are God's mass. As we go out in the world, people should see the reflection of God within us. And I can't do that on my own because I'm sinful. So I better ensure that I'm imbued with the Word of God and I do everything according to that standard. To love and serve our neighbor, to be God's mass in the world, that's the idea of vocation in the context of information technology. And by the way, Christians have a great message to share along with technology. You know what a lot of these strong AI researchers are looking for? Eternal life. Eternal life is already freely available. It doesn't depend upon a bug-ridden AI system. It doesn't depend upon fallible human beings. It's already been accomplished. When Christ rose from the dead, he conquered sin, death, the devil. Human beings were bought back and redeemed. We're not perfect, and we won't be until heaven. But because of what Christ has done, not only can we live for today, but we can live eternally. Now, just allow me to end with something practical. Oftentimes I hear people say, you know what? It's true, I'm kind of addicted to technology. So they'll say, all right, I'm going to limit my time on Facebook, I'm going to limit my time on social media, I'm going to limit the time I play games or whatever it might be. And you know, that's fine. Everybody makes that determination. But let me suggest something. If you've decided, I need to limit the time that I interact with technology, other than homework assignments, students? Okay. I'm going to limit the time. You're going to say, well, what do I do instead? Exactly. Be sure you substitute something for that. And my advice is, what about service? What about serving your neighbor? There's all kinds of physical, practical things that we can do. Rather than doing nothing or filling it up with something else, filling up that time with service is okay. Now, lest I'm misunderstood, social media has some good aspects. My wife would tell you she loves Facebook because it's a way to keep up with her family and with her friends. Some of my grandchildren are scattered on the West Coast. We get to interact with them via Facebook. But at the same time, you have to recognize that there is an inherent danger to it. As long as you understand it, you, through the power of the Spirit, can master the technology rather than having the technology master you. So, is technology neutral? I'm going to claim that it's a myth that there is neutral tech. All tech is designed as a tool to solve a problem. The intended purpose of that tool is going to flow from the attitude of the heart of the creator and also the attitude of the heart of the user. So because it does reflect an image, tech isn't neutral. Do you have comments or questions? I'd love to hear your comments as well as questions, too. Yeah, I got plenty of them.